Thank you for joining me, everybody. My name is Willow. Welcome to Workshops with Willow. This is Purple December. This is what we are going to be sculpting today out of air-dried clay. There's no need to bake. So let me go ahead and get some fresh clay and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, everybody, welcome back. This is our clay, and if you ordered from me, this is what I sent you. It's wrapped in plastic wrap to keep it dry, to keep it from drying, excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up and reveal the mystery that is inside. So I do not throw away my plastic when I am sculpting with it because we're using air dry clay, and I don't prefer to add water to this because it changes the molecular structure of the clay and causes it to be a little bit more flaky after it dries. I don't add water. So as I'm sculpting, I continue to use the plastic to allow me to keep the clay moist in areas that I'm not working in. Okay, so this is very wet, and that's very good. So I'm just going to roll it over this edge where the clay kind of built up in the wrinkles of the plastic. Try to collect some of that clay back. I'm not really doing this to be stingy or sparing, but this clay will dry later, and it will become more of a flaky mess all over what you're using and would like to be a clean surface. So, because like I said, we're going to continue using this plastic all throughout the project. Of course, if your skin has sensitivities and you're using gloves, you may not necessarily need the plastic. The gloves will help your fingers slide over the clay. I like to feel the clay, I like to play with the clay, I don't mind getting messy with the clay, but of course you're allowed to be as conservative as you choose at this point. This is your day in clay. Alright, so now that I've done that, and I've pretty much picked up all of my extra little pieces that will turn into a flaky mess later, I want this clay to turn into a ball. I want this crack here to seam together. I want my clay to be where I need it to. So I usually start this by taking the clay and rolling it into itself, kneading it into itself. Now that I have pretty straight edges, except for that one, I'm going to wrap it back up inside of my clay, inside of my plastic, and I did this so that the plastic doesn't get stuck back down inside the clay. So I'm just going to roll it, work with it, press it, roll it, press it, roll it, squeeze it, press it, roll it, uncover it, cover it back up, look for my cracks. Squish all my cracks back together. Open it up a little bit. See how my cracks are going back together and I only have like little plastic wrinkles? That's perfect. These cracks here, we want to keep pressing those back together. We want the inside of our clay figurine to be as solid as possible. And this is how we do it, by working it back together so that we can work it back apart. So here, as long as the clay is covered, you can kind of take your time. Let's say the phone rings and you need to set it down and walk away. Just squeeze the plastic tight around the clay, just like it was when you got it, and go ahead and walk away. Oh, excuse me. See how my plastic wants to get stuck down in that grease? I really don't want it to. I want to be able to glide right over my project, not have any cracks in it, smush it all back into itself. Pull the plastic back out of the cracks and crevices. See how it makes the cracks and crevices? But that's okay. That's okay because this is a fun project and it takes time. It takes a good amount of time, so we're not even going to worry about it. I'm going to take this and I'm going to roll it, pressing it, rolling it, pressing it, unwrapping my plastic, rolling it over, pressing it, rolling it, pressing it, rolling it. You pretty much get the idea, right? So at this point, I like to take my ends that start to pucker over, press those back into themselves also. Press those right back into our ball of clay, a little mass of clay, because here in a minute, once we feel like it's one good, solid ball that has no cracks in it, that's a ripple. It's not really a crack. Those seem a little bit like cracks, but I believe they're just ripples. More ripples. So now that we're here, I'm going to go ahead and set my clay right in the center of that. Oops. Fold my plastic over so that I have a little bit of room over here. Let me see what we're doing. Okay. How is your view? All right. So now I like to use anything that is flat and round. This is a really common tool, apparently, for me to be sculpting with, but I use it to roll down my fabric, roll down my clay. So you're going to create a flat edge as you roll, and I do not press very firmly to do this. I take my time to do this, and I try to make sure that the clay is moving evenly, because look, I'll show you. It's going to start creating a ridge, and that ridge may buckle and start to pucker as you progress. So this edge over here is starting to buckle. You can spread the clay back that way, working with it. So you really just want to work the clay down into somewhat of a flat surface evenly. So we'll go this way, then we'll go this way. We're going to flip it over. And this way. And see how this side is higher than the other side? Because this is the side that I kept stopping at. So I'm going to turn it sideways. Press my clay. See how there's a dent there now? So we get to press the clay until we get it straight. Until we get it all ironed out in the wash. Alright, so as we're pressing this down, I want to show you something. See this? This is what I do about that. Okay? Roll it flat until we get a little bit closer to where we want it to be. And see how it's doing all this? That's not even going to be a problem, because we're going to keep working our clay until it comes out together. So I do stuff like this around the edges, just to push those edges back in. I roll it back and forth. And the reason why I do this is not to get the edge straight, because we're going to deal with all of that later, but to keep the cracks from forming in the center of my clay, because we're going to sculpt this in a minute. In a minute we're going to play with the tools and we're going to start sculpting, but for right now I need to make sure that these little dents don't turn into cracks in the very center of my project. So I'm going to keep doing this until everything smooths out. See how it's getting flat? Spin it this way. It's very important to spin your clay and attack it from another angle, because even though this is flat wood, you're not holding it flat. It wobbles back and forth, and oops. See, we have strange habits when we get to the ends. Let me make sure. Okay. So for this. Now this isn't perfectly flat yet either, but we're still going to flip it over and get the other side to catch up. I really don't like that little bump in the center of my plate, but here we go. Alright guys, so this is where it gets good. We're getting a flat surface, a flat coin disc-like surface out of our clay. See that? And this is a really good time for you to decide just how big you want your project to be. So you can create it smaller like this and have a more densely weighted project. You can work on it a little longer until you get a larger, flatter surface to work with, a more pancake surface to work with. Oh, getting dry clay all over. But it's really up to you. So I'm going to continue on this piece until it gets a little flatter and a little skinnier, but not quite this thin. Not quite this thin. I love the size of this one. This one is for a different project. It's going to be completed on something else, so I needed it to be thin like this. But for this one, we're going to do a little bit of a thicker bolt. So I'm going to keep going. I just run my hand over it because we can feel things a lot better than we can see things. Notice that I have little dents in places. Oh, and a nail scratch. Hey. So now that I'm getting over here to the edge where the plastic is laid over, I want to open that back up again and give my clay room to grow. Remember, we're going to cover all this up in just a second, so we're not really worried about it drying out. If you are taking a little too much time with your project, what you would consider too much time with your project, you can take your clay, your plastic, and pull it. The tighter you pull it to the clay, the longer it's going to keep. Okay? You see that? So even though I'm working all over the project and I'm over here in this area, I'm working over here, you can pull it tight like this, since we're not working on that end of the project, and then just keep going over here or sculpting or whatever it is that we're doing. But I'll show you more of that later. For right now, we're just trying to get this into a flat, even, disc-like piece. So I'll give it a little bit more room to grow right here where I fold it, and just keep going over it until it is what I want it to be. So I have an idea in mind of what my final result should look like, and that's great. I think that it should look like this over here. Well, the closer I get to that in similarity, I'm going to stop at a point that is satisfiable to me. So, it's always good to take a step back from our projects, take a look at it and go, you know what, I like that, it's good enough, I'm going to trust myself because I know that I'm also going to make changes in the next part of this project. Here we go. Okay, flip that over. Get this side going too. So again, this is designed to push our clay and spread our clay without necessarily cracking our clay. So here I'm going to go ahead and spin it around. And again, as I mentioned, oh yeah, let's be stuck. This here, I'm not worried about so much, okay? It's these cracks that run deep into the clay that I'm worried about. Okay, so apparently these cracks need to be pushed together. And what we're going to do is we're going to push, push, push the clay together, okay? We press it together, and I start getting into using our fingers instead of the roller. Press those edges together. Okay, so I'm not really getting a lot of spin and rotation on the clay, which isn't really that serious, but I do want to kind of show you what I'm doing. I'm pushing against the edge and pushing the top clay down into my finger. I'm not pushing. Clearly you can see I'm not pushing. I'm not putting a dent in the clay. I'm just running my finger along it, kind of pressing it. Kind of pressing it. Again, there I go using that word press. When we're not really pressing, we're not really putting any kind of firmness into it. We're just kind of moving our hands in that direction. Again, I'm going to cover this up. I'm going to start pressing this crack back into where I really want it to be, which is being a participant with the rest of my clay. So you could probably sit here all day and without pressing just touch the same spot of this clay and it will continue to eventually be where you want it to be. Okay, so for these larger cracks and crevices that I showed you, I'm going to really stick it to them. I'm going to get my tools in there. I'm going to do some heavy pressing because I really, really, really don't want them there. They don't belong there, and they're going to interfere with the sculpting that we're going to do later when we start pulling pieces away from the clay. We don't want one of those cracks to be in the middle of one of the pieces we pull away. So I do just kind of, sometimes I roll it, but I guess that's a matter of your eye-to-hand coordination skills. I kind of don't have it. So do you see how we started to flatten out, recompress that little crack in the clay? That's exactly what we want to continue doing. all the way around the clay. So even as I press the clay back down, I want to press it back into itself. Alrighty then, there we have it. Let's go ahead and open this up. Ooh. Take a look at our clay. This is okay. This happens when the plastic comes off. Not worried about that or that. Alrighty then. That's what happens when the plastic comes off. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick that off rather than trying to figure out how to put it back inside of my project, wherever that spot went. And since that's going to turn into a big flaky mess faster than we know it, I'm going to get rid of it, get it out of my workspace. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to cover this back up. I'm going to cover it tight. Okay, I'm going to cover it tight along this edge here. Remember how I showed you a minute ago? Pressing this against your clay, very firmly against your clay, because we do not want it drying out right now. We want to try to preserve it as long as absolutely possible. So, okay. I need to make sure, I was trying to see if it was a good spot for me to work in too, so I'm going to tighten my clay along the bottom here. I don't know that this is going to be the bottom, I'm just covering up my edges here, making sure that my plastic is tight to my edges. Okay. So before we cover it up, we can figure out if that's the side we want it to be on the bottom, or if this is the side we want it to be on the bottom. You can do that just by spinning it to which direction you believe the bottom should sit on. Maybe you don't like it that way and you'd like to do it the other way. So, alrighty then, here we go. So, right, I'm going to start way down here on this end, covering up all of this, because this is going to stay where we put it, right here along the edge. Lift that up, kind of give it a little bit of a fold so that it stays tight. On that edge, this edge. Lift it up here on this side also. We want to try to cover up as much as possible, and if we're only working on one side of the project at a time, it's best that we keep the other side covered. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to put a split between mom and the baby. So here's where I've decided my bottom to be. I'm going to do a little bit of a flatness so that you see what I see. And now I'm going to separate mom from baby. Come in from mom. Let's see. Start about here. Now this tool is a cuticle pusher that I got from the 99-cent store. If you did not have something like this already, you can pick up something like this at the 99-cent store. Okay, so right here, we're going to make our separation between mom and the baby. And if you see, it's almost starting to take on a little bit of a shape of a heart. Do you see that? A heart that's maybe laying on its side. So as I come around here, I'm imagining the head of the baby, the forehead of the baby, the nose of the baby, the mouth of the baby, the chest of the baby, the point where I want my heart to go, baby's chin, and mom. Okay. So as we come around mom, we see mom has a forehead and a nose and a chin. Okay. Now this piece here, we can pull out. You can go ahead and dispose of. There's been times that I've separated them and then just pressed it together until it became a much bigger piece. So if you do want to keep it, you can roll it up really tight in here. Hold on to that and make something miniature out of it later. Okay, so back to December. Now, I'm only going to work on one part at a time, so I'm going to go ahead and cover up the bottom. Pull that over. Tuck this down in against the baby. Tuck all of this plastic in against the baby, revealing only mom. Pull this up over tight over the baby. And you see what I did? How I covered the baby up? Because we're going to work on the baby later. We're going to do this one step at a time. So now that we're here, we're working on mom. These little screwdrivers here can also be found at the 99-cent store and rolling off of my table. None of that is what I wanted. So here we start going to the edge of the clay that we just built, and we start pressing back into it. The little crack that, or the little crease that we made, pulling the clay out of there. We just go ahead and shape that up to be our neck. Go ahead and press that in to make her chin. And me, I'm just setting the screwdriver along the side of the clay and pressing it into the figure. I'm not really trying to shape the mouth or anything right yet. I'm just trying to make sure that my clay is going to be even. Smooth out what I just took away from the project by removing that clay. Okay. So here's our forehead. Here's about where our hair is going to start. Okay? So as we come down around the forehead, we run into a dent for eyeballs, where eyes go, right? And from that dent, our face will take on a nose, correct? And the nose, the profile of the face, extend outward farther than the dent of the eyes. So we're going to push our clay to give us a nice swooping bridge of a nose, the crease for our eyes. The sweep for a nose. It's kind of a bummer from my angle. I'm having a hard time watching what I'm doing in this tight little space right here. So bear with me for a second, please. So when you're making your nose, you want to be very careful with it. You don't want to pull clay away. You really just want to ease your clay, pressing your clay into the position that you need it to be in. Smooth the clay. Smooth the edges of your clay. So see how we're starting to get a nose in here? I'm getting there, I'm getting there. Sorry for bumping the camera on you. Oh, there I go again. It's my glasses, they keep hitting the camera. So coming from the nose and the crease in the nose, I want to go ahead and give her access to another lip. I keep doing that. I apologize so much. Let me just take them off. Now I can't see. Just kidding. Okay, so your lips are not going to stick out from your face. Your nose is going to stick out from your face. Maybe your nose isn't going to be quite as pointy as mine, but you know, you never know. Apparently this is how my nose wanted to be today. I have space for our upper lip underneath our nose, right? And then we're going to have a lip. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and manipulate the clay from the opposite side. I don't know if you can see this or not. Alright. See our profile? Let's go ahead and cover her up. Give her a break. I'm going to slide over here. So I can't really see the inside of the baby from here, but let me turn it a little bit. There we go. And pull just a little bit of extra clay out of there. All right. Oh, baby faces. Babies typically have huge cheeks and giant foreheads and pretty little lips that sit inside of them all. Little faces. So, we want to go ahead and decide where those cheeks are going to be. And once we get those big old cheeks, or that big forehead, whichever you like to start with, some people like to start at the top. If we were doing a painting right now, I would always suggest to start at the eyes, but we're not. We're playing in clay. And since we're coming around the horn, I just as soon as say, I definitely, whoops, as much as I feel like ooh, I was so satisfied with Mom's face until I just stabbed the clay. Well, anyways, accidents happen, don't they? We'll come back to that later. I was just trying to explain to the love of my life last night that, one of them, I have two, lucky me, I was trying to explain to him last night that mistakes are so normal. We all make them. And sometimes you don't notice them. Others don't notice them as badly as you do. I mean, while I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm getting all hung up on the thought that, oh, look, you're doing it wrong. And not even attempting to focus on how right I am doing it. So, there goes human nature. So basically, with clay sculpting, you're going to manipulate the clay until you get it to where you want it to be. No two sculptures are going to look alike. No two products are going to look alike. They're all going to be one of a kind, and that is the beauty of art. The absolute beauty of art is that everything can have its very own identity. It doesn't have to be like somebody else's. Yours doesn't have to be like mine. Mine doesn't have to be like yours. I'm going to hold this up so I can see what I'm doing. And they can all be beautiful. I mean, even just these two that I'm working on here in front of you now, very so dramatically. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing evenly, clay back in, back up, and back down and around the baby's nose. So this is only a profile. I don't really need to concern myself with what all this looks like. I just want it to be smooth inside of there. Her face is smooth inside of there. I did just poke a hole in my plastic. That might not be something that you really want to do. It's a lot better if the plastic stays intact. So there's not a lot of detail that goes into a person's silhouette. I think it's called a silhouette, but there's not a lot of detail that goes into it. It's basically just the perfect side profile outline. And just pull a little extra stuff off of it very gently. Don't really use too much force when I'm doing this. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take your edges, you're going to smooth your edges, curve your edges, until you feel like you are satisfied with your overall project. You feel like you're satisfied with the nose and the forehead. You believe that the mom and the baby are looking at each other and sharing a mommy hug. That's when you're going to quit. That's when you're going to take the plastic off your project and say, you know what? I think I'm ready to let it start drying. And definitely structure your face before you start smoothing out the rest of your clay, because you're not going to be able to smooth your nose and your lips once it starts drying. So I'm going to take it off of the plastic now, and I am just going to smooth little areas like this. Go ahead and rotate it in my hand. See about little spaces like this. Smooth little spaces like this. There we go. Take those little edges, start to smooth them out and soften them. So this is the back side of the project. This is where I'm pulling so much back from. The front of it, smoothing it out. Again, this is up to your own discretion, how you want to smooth your project. If you want to leave it rigid, or if you want to continue smoothing it. Me, I'm going to smooth it because I am going to spread it out a little bit more. So for me, doing this feels like I'm kind of warming up and preparing these outer edges that have been exposed to the movement I want to put them through. So this bumpiness here, look at that. We can just go ahead and get rid of it. We don't even need it. And really smooth our project out. There we go. There we go. I'm just going to shape and sculpt and carve either a corner out of it if I want to, maybe carve a corner into it if I feel like it, maybe make sure that some of these edges flow seamlessly around to another side of the project. So and then you basically just hack away at your project until you feel like you love it. My nails are too long. Alrighty then, so as soon as this dries, I'll go ahead and pick that little hair out and be done with it. Alright, so, you know what else I'm going to do that I think I would like better? I know. I just wasn't feeling it. Alrighty then, guys. Your project will take approximately 24 hours to dry, resulting in an evenly white clay. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you love art and love this channel, by shopping at the art store or becoming a Patreon member, your contributions support this channel and its content. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Make it a great day.